The Texas win total is set at 10.5 right now, and it's far too early, right? There could be changes as news comes out and stuff happens during the offseason, but as right now, the Texas win total is set at 10.5. Now, I want to take a few minutes and talk about how does Quinn Ewers impact it? How many wins is he worth, and how can he either help Texas hit that win total, or what has to happen for Texas to hit that win total, right? So we're going to get into how many wins he's worth and talk about how he's played in these big games, at least in 2023. And he was one of the deciding factors in that Bama game this past year. Without him, it's probably tough to win that game because several of those touchdown throws, especially the one to Worthy, was actually pretty good coverage. It was tight coverage, and he threw it to where Worthy had to go and get the ball. So I think he was a big factor in that. I think Texas' schedule maybe wasn't the toughest this year, but they did play Bama, and he played outstanding against Bama. And then he was a big reason why they blew out, Texas Tech and Oklahoma State and TCU, not TCU. That was a close game, but he was a big reason why they had these blowout games, right? So with that said, let's look at his numbers from the toughest teams in 2023, Quinn Ewers, and then we'll go through each game in 2024 and kind of talk about what needs to happen to win and how Quinn Ewers impacts that game. So in 2023 against Bama, he was 24-38, 349 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So in the biggest game of the year, besides the playoff game, he rose to the occasion essentially, right? He had some big throws downfield, something that was talked about he needed to improve on. He hit on 2 really big throws, 20 yards plus downfield in the air, and played a really good game. So I think he kind of tilted that game to Texas' favor, right, with his play. Against OU, they lost, but they're in position to win, right? 31-37, 346 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. And the biggest takeaway in that game was such a slow, bad start, the early interception, and just not a great start, but was able to bounce back and put them in position to win. So still played really good against OU besides the slow start. Then Washington's probably the only game that was kind of just it wasn't clicking, and that was for the whole team. 24-43, 318 yards, 1 touchdown, 54 yards on the ground, right? So those are kind of the biggest games of the year for Texas last year. And again, we talked about the game against Texas Tech, the game against Oklahoma State, where they, the other teams they played where they blew them out. He was the reason why they're up so high, right? So let's get into the schedule for next year. But before we do, I just want to encourage you all to consider subscribing to the channel. We're just a big quarterback hub. We talk all things quarterbacks. I know we're talking about win totals right here, but we're trying to implement how Quinn Ewers can impact the win total. So it's very niche based, the channel, mainly college quarterbacks. We do have a podcast where we have guys come on and talk shop. So if you're interested in that type of kind of niche content, quarterback content, please consider subscribing. All right, so let's talk about the schedule and kind of go through game by game and what needs to happen. 10.5 is a high number. That means they can only lose 1 game. If they lose 2, they're going to be under that, right? Not including the playoffs or SEC championship, just in season games, right? So they can only afford 1 loss. So technically, like how I look at it is, Michigan and Georgia are your 2 toughest teams this schedule. You have to be at a minimum 1-1 against them, right? And we'll get into that in a second. But for an SEC schedule, I think it's a relatively favorable schedule. Anytime you have Michigan and Georgia on your schedule, it's a challenging schedule, but you get Georgia at home. And compared to some of the other SEC schedules, like Oklahoma's schedule, where they have like 6 top 25 teams, it's a relatively favorable schedule. It's always going to be challenging, but it's a favorable schedule. But there aren't any rooms for slip-ups. Like if you lose to Michigan or Georgia, I wouldn't consider that a slip-up as long as it's competitive. So you can't have a slip-up game, right? So let's go ahead and dive into the schedule. So Colorado State at home, that's a win. Michigan away, I think they're going to be favored in that game. Michigan's got a new coach. They're going to have a new quarterback that whether the quarterback's on the roster now or not remains to be seen. But Texas has an advantage even traveling to Michigan. With Quinn Ewers being one of the most veteran quarterbacks now, and especially in that game, I think you have the advantage because of Quinn Ewers and because of Coach Sark, right? Now, that's still going to be a tough game, and you could still very likely lose that game. But I think Texas will be favored there, right? That's number 2. Michigan, toss-up. We're going to call it a toss-up. UTSA, home. You got to win. ULM, home. Win. Mississippi State, home. Win, right? Mississippi State, new quarterback, new coach, breaking everything in, plus the talent advantage that Quinn Ewers and the Longhorns have. So 3 or 4 out of your first, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 out of your first 5 games are at home. Your only away game is Michigan, which is going to be one of the biggest games of the season, right? So after Mississippi State, you have the bye. And then you go to Oklahoma. neutral game. This game is always a toss-up. I talked about this talking about Jackson Arnold and OU's win total. Anytime these two teams play, if Texas was winless going into this game, I would still view it as a toss-up. If OU was winless going into this game, I would view it as a toss-up. Especially growing up here in Texas, that game is always a toss-up game. However, Texas should be favored. OU's breaking a new offensive coordinator, a new quarterback, and if you watch the channel, you know we're very high on Jackson Arnold, but Quinn Ewers will have the advantage. The play caller, Coach Sark, will have the advantage, right? So I chalked it up to a Texas win, but it's still going to be in the toss-up category based off the rivalry. Then you have Georgia at home. That's huge. You have Georgia at home. I think Georgia's going to be the favorite here, but you have them at home. But Georgia's coming to Carson Beck, and just another year in that system. We're really high in Carson Beck, but just because I favor Georgia, I still view it as a toss-up game. Like, Texas should be really good this year, right? With Quinn Ewers and the people he has to throw to, that could be the advantage of for this game. Like, Quinn Ewers could have the advantage because of the people he has to throw to and because of his experience in this offense. But I lean Georgia here, but I view it as a toss-up. Vandy, away, win. Florida, home. That's got to be a win, too. And Florida's, their win total is like at 5.5, and they could definitely surpass that, but they have a challenging schedule. Texas should be favored, should win that. Arkansas, away. I know last time we played Arkansas a few years ago at Arkansas, they lost. This used to be an old rivalry, but just not very high in Arkansas this year. So even though Arkansas is away, that should still be a win. Arkansas's got a new OC, new quarterback. Then this is what, game 10 of the season, I believe, right now. So I mean, they could have an interim coach by now with the way things went last year. So this should be a win as well. Kentucky at home should be a win. They're developing or they have a new quarterback they're breaking in, and then A&M away, new coach, a talented quarterback. It should be a win, but that's another toss-up game I have, right? Like growing up in Texas, anytime the Aggies and Longhorns play, kind of like how the Longhorns and Sooners have been the past 10, 15 years, it's always going to be a toss-up game. But it is away. But with that said, like it's going to be a fairly decent-sized Texas crowd there too, right? Like anytime Texas and A&M played, yeah, you maybe get a little home field advantage, but the stadium is packed with both fan bases, right? So it's not like a true home field advantage where like Texas has the home field advantage when Georgia comes, and Georgia would have the home field advantage if Texas went there. It's not the same extreme kind of level here with Texas and A&M, just because both fan bases will travel to those games. So kind of like the highlights there. I think Quinn Ewers, if they beat Georgia, it's going to be because of Quinn Ewers, right? Like you don't need Quinn to beat UTSA, ULM, Colorado State, Vandy, right? But these big games, I think you're going to need Quinn to win. Michigan and Georgia. I think you're going to need Quinn to play really good. Quinn to play how he played against Bama to beat those two teams, right? So at a very minimum, to hit the win total, hit the over, you have to be 1-1 against Georgia and against Michigan. That means going 2-0 against rivals OU and A&M. And so you're going to be favored against both OU and A&M, but those are still toss-up games in my opinion. Like, I don't care if A&M or OU is having a bad season. Those are still toss-up games. Even if Texas is favored by 17 points, those are toss-up games. So tough schedule still, but I think for an SEC schedule, relatively easy. I mean, your home games, you get Mississippi State at home, Florida at home, and Kentucky at home. Your only true away games in the SEC are Vanderbilt and Arkansas. Vanderbilt, you're probably going to have more Texas fans, and Arkansas may be totally checked out by then. I know A&M's away, but like we talked about, yes, it's technically an away game, but you're going to have Texas fans traveling there too, right? So your main away games are Michigan, and then you have Vandy, and then Arkansas, right? So it's a favorable schedule by SEC standards. And I think Quinn Ewers, I think he showed at least this past season, but even against OU last year, he showed in the big games he tends to rise to the occasion. So I think the biggest thing is, I'm not concerned about the big games. I think they're going to be there. It's just avoiding slip-up games. You have to avoid a slip-up game against Mississippi State, Florida, Kentucky. Those are Arkansas and Vandy. You have to avoid all those slip-up games. Then you have the go 1-1 against Michigan and Georgia, and then toss-ups OU and A&M, even though you are favored there and you should win, at least as of now. But those are still always going to be toss-up games. So with that said, I think Quinn Ewers can impact Texas to get that one, maybe even two wins against Michigan and Georgia to help them reach that win total. It's just, I think it may be even bigger to his play to help them avoid any slip up games. With that said, Texas fans, quarterback fans, or just SEC fans, whoever watching, what are your thoughts of Texas? Let us know in the comments below. What are your thoughts of Quinn Ewers? And do you think that they hit that win total or not? Again, we're just a big quarterback hub. We talk all things quarterbacks. I know this was kind of win total but we kind of made it apply to the quarterback. So if you like that type of content, consider subscribing to the channel. It does help. So let us know your thoughts in the comments below if Texas hits it or not. Keep following along. We'll see you next time. Peace.